Psychological Skills Training, Energy Management by Coach Shannon. What is energy management? Controlling your physical, mental energies to optimal ranges on demand. And we're going to describe mental and physical energies as stress. There are two types of stress. Distress is the type of stress that gets you stressed out, makes you feel not so good, and you see bad pictures in your head, while eustress is the type of stress where you get excited and you get motivated and you're ready to go and get things done. And we're going to suggest through this slideshow that there are optimal ranges that you need to have. Maybe distress is at the far left of the spectrum and eustress is at the far right of the spectrum, and there are optimal ranges depending on your personality that you're going to be more to the right or more to the left, and we're suggesting that you can actually control those physical and mental energies on demand, and when you're able to do that, now there's a higher likelihood that you're going to have better competitions. Of course, this is just a mental skill. You would need to have mastery of the basics of whatever you're trying to do. If it's Greco-Roman wrestling, you need to have a mastery of the basics and be able to execute those. If it's folk style wrestling, you need to have a mastery of the basics and you need to be able to execute those basic skills. If it's freestyle wrestling, again, you would need to have a mastery of all of the physical skills that are requirements of that sport, and then blend in this mental skill of energy management on demand, and then that, of course, you have a higher likelihood of increasing your ability with your end results. Components of energy management. What influences the energy range? What is your right level? Are you in control? Yes. We'll answer the last question first. You are in control, and the last slide is sort of suggested there. There are two types of, or two ranges rather. Far to the left is which we're going to call distress, and far to the right is which we're going to call eustress. That is the energy range that most of us are under control. What influences that energy range? A lot of sports scientists and or psychologists and psychiatrists suggest that that energy range is influenced by the importance that we place on any particular moment. Now, what does that mean? If you really feel like it's an important competition and or versus it being practice, if you place a lot of value in that competition, it's really important to you, that typically has the response of you being extremely nervous, which is, distress, we'll call that, or extremely excited, and we can call that sometimes anxiety if we go all the way past excitement to anxiety, and that those are the things that influence the energy range, the importance that you actually place on something. A lot of times in practice, athletes don't have any importance on any, it doesn't really necessarily mean anything to them, while other athletes place a ton of importance on practice. So they may have the same energy range that they do in practice that they would actually in competition. So there's an argument that suggests that if you place the same amount of value that you do in practice and competitions, you may necessarily be ready. Now, some athletes don't place any importance on practice at all, and they are amped up for the competitions, and they perform well because their perception of the competition is it makes them excited, while other athletes, their perception of the competition, it makes them extremely panicked. So the key is to find out what is your right level based on that last explanation there. If you place a lot of value on the competitions, now you've got to find out, okay, do I need to be further to the right or further to the left for me to compete at a high level? What happens sometimes is athletes will look at another athlete, and just because they need to be extremely excited, they feel like they need to be extremely excited, where really that may not be the case. And that's what happens a lot of times. You may follow what another athlete is doing, and you may not necessarily need to be that excited. And if you are that excited, maybe you're in the anxiety level, and you may need to be down a couple of notches. So most athletes need to figure out what their right level is, and they need to practice that in practice, in competition, in preseason. And then once you know what your right level is, you can start to control where that level is. Relaxation response techniques. Progressive relaxation. Now, these next 2 or 3 slides here, there are going to be several different techniques, and what I want to point out here is just like physical skills and or wrestling skills, your coach may teach you, if you've been in the sport for longer than a year, Your coach may have taught you, 10, 20, 30, 40 different types of techniques that all can be used in wrestling. And what happens 9 times out of 10 is each specific wrestler will individualize the techniques. In other words, they won't necessarily use all of the techniques. They will pick the technique that is more useful and more effective for them. And that's what I want to suggest with these relaxation response techniques. They're all useful, and you may have to find one that's better for you. Jumping right into progressive relaxation, essentially it's a systematic contraction and relaxation of the muscle groups, and you could start from your head and go down to your toes, or you could start from your toes and go down to your up to your head. You could start with your fingers and travel up your arm and go down through your body. Kind of the way you do it is up to you. The design of each muscle contraction and relaxation is for the contracted state to be from 4 to 6 seconds, and the relaxed state to be about double that amount, which is 8 to 12 seconds. And what the sports scientists suggest is when you're aware of how your muscle feels when it's contracted and you're aware of how the muscle feels when it's relaxed, now you can start to do that on demand. You can call up a contraction, and really when you tense up your arm, if you just do that right now, you're controlling that. Now when you relax it and you let it go limp, you're controlling that too. Now you just want to do it in a time period. If you do this through your whole body, now you have a really physical and mental example of when the muscle is contracted and when the muscle is relaxed. If you do this consistently, you're able to get your whole body in a relaxed state. And there are several different things that I'm going to say next that are going to help you with this process if you do it. One is you're going to need to practice it all the time. It's going to take, probably 2 to 3 weeks just before it starts to feel good. And then over the course of the next 3 to 6 months, that is when you will be able to, really take hold of this and get it on demand, meaning you can do it in your competitions. Speaking of which, you need to first start this progressive relaxation technique in a non-distracted environment, probably in a quiet room. As you progress and as you get better, now you want to do it in a distracted room, meaning it could be in practice, and it can be in your practice matches, it can be in the preseason, ultimately it can be in your competitions. Then you want to move it into your qualifiers for the state tournament, then your state tournament, then your junior national tournaments, then the national tournaments, then the world championships. The progression is that you're able to do this on demand in all of your competitions. Relaxation response technique number 2, autogenics. Autogenics is a blending of 2 or 3 different types of psychological skills. Essentially, it's self-talk in a relaxed state. And how would you get in a relaxed state? You could use that last technique that we used, or you could use a breathing model technique where you're basically slowing down how many breaths are coming in and coming out. And when you're slowing down how many breaths are coming in and coming out, actually your heart rate slows down. And a lot of scientists, sports scientists, again, suggest that when your heart rate is slowed down, your body actually goes into a relaxed state. Essentially, when you're sleeping, you are in a relaxed state. Your heart rate actually does slow down. It's very difficult to sleep if your heart rate is fast, so you kind of see the similarities there. Again, this technique must be practiced repeatedly. Again, I'm going to suggest 2 to 3 weeks is you actually start to get a really good sensation. Over 3 to 6 months, if you employ this skill on an ongoing basis for that time period with the same sort of model that I suggested before. First do it in a non-distracted, quiet environment, then do it in a distracted, more noisy environment, then take it into the practice room, then take it into your practice match, then take it into the preseason, then take it into your competition season, then use it in your state tournament series, junior national tournaments, world championships, Olympics, etc. If you do that over the 3 to 6 months that I'm prescribing, it can become very powerful and very effective. Again, I want to point out that each technique may be more suited for one individual versus the other individual. So maybe you like the progressive relaxation technique a little bit better. Maybe you like the autogenics techniques a little bit better. Or maybe you like some of these other relaxation response techniques. Imagery, essentially, there's a whole slideshow we're going to do on that, but that is seeing pictures in your head, using your imaginations to get what you want out of your life. Focused breathing is another technique, and we kind of talked about that a little bit in the last slide. This is essentially controlling how many breaths are coming in and coming out. When you exercise, you actually are increasing the blood flow and your heartbeats and the breathing. So if you reverse that, if you're not exercising and you control the breathing by slowing down your breaths, your heart rate actually slows down and you actually can become in a relaxed state. Again, when you're sleeping, you're in a completely relaxed state and you're breathing slower. Stretching. This should happen before or after just about every single practice that you're doing, and part of the reason why you do it after practice, not necessarily before, is because your muscles have been in a contracted state the whole practice, and now you want to relax and you want to, loosen those muscles back up by stretching them. Meditation is actually a blending of just about everything on that page, meaning you're going to control your breathing so it slows down. You're going to be seeing pictures in your head of how you want to be, and you may be using autogenics and or self-talk to say, I'm going to be in a relaxed state right now. These are the things I want to focus on. Right now I'm going to focus on nothing. So meditation is an example of blending. Again, autogenics is another example of blending some of these relaxation response techniques. Relaxation response techniques. Find one that is right for you. Sort of been suggesting that through all of the slides. You may feel nothing at first. Again, just like your physical skills, when you're learning how to do a double leg or a single leg or an ankle lace or a back arching throw, they take time to learn, and you may not necessarily feel like you're getting that physical skill at first. You're going to have the same type of responses with all of your psychological skills. So they're going to take time, and you may not feel like you're getting it right off the bat. Again, I suggest 2 to 3 weeks, just so that you can understand how to do it correctly, and then over the next 3 to 6 months, that's when you're actually going to master the skill and get better at it. Are built and get better with practice. It's been suggesting that throughout. It takes time for you to learn how to do them. It takes time for you to learn how to master them, and they are going to get better with practice. Psychological skills training, energy management, acknowledgments. All of the information presented in the slideshow was derived from the United States Ski and Snowboard Association Elite Performance Video Series, Sports Psychology in 2004. In the last slideshow, I suggested it was a video series, and now I'm going to suggest that it was also a CD-ROM. Not even sure if they make those anymore, but in 2004, they were making CD-ROMs, and a CD-ROM essentially is a super CD, which has video, and it has other resources like PDFs. And with those PDFs, they've given 9 or 10 exercises for each module that they are talking about. So with the energy management module that they displayed on that CD-ROM, they have 9 or 10 different types of exercises. With the goal management, they have another 9 or 10 different exercises. So there's about 100 to 300 pages of resources that, if any one of you want, they will help you manage your energy better. Thank you.